Chapter 21 The Fastest Legend. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Swinging its 9 massive tails, looking like a walking hill, the 9-tailed fox howled at the moon from the center of the village. This scene, it dredged up terrifying memories buried deep within many villagers. The 9-tails attack was a nightmare etched in the minds of Konoha's older residents. So many parents, relatives, and friends had died horribly that night. The village paid a heavy price, sacrificing the 4th Hokage to barely contain the catastrophe, and now, the terrifying figure of the 9-tails reappeared. It was almost a carbon copy of that night years ago. Far away, Shinji's eyes widened. He leaped onto a large tree. Was that explosion aimed at Naruto? Thought he'd been preoccupied and hadn't paid much attention to the earlier blast. Seeing the 9-tails rampaging through the village, he realized the attack must have targeted Naruto, the 9-tails Jinchuriki. But doubt crept into his mind. In the original timeline, even when Naruto lost control, he'd never manifested the 9-tails in its entirety like this. Normally, a rampage started with chakra tails leaking out. The more tails leaked, the greater the frenzy. During his fight with Pain, Naruto had once leaked 8 chakra tails and nearly unleashed the 9-tails completely. Now, it seemed Naruto, the Jinchuriki, hadn't just lost control, he'd lost consciousness entirely. Who did this? The more Shinji thought about it, the more alarmed he became. To render Naruto, with his Uzumaki clan resilience and being a Jinchuriki, completely unconscious, he would have had to suffer massive injuries. Was someone trying to destroy Konoha? Boom, boom, boom. The 9-tails, finished with its roaring, began to unleash hell. It turned on Konoha, venting its rage. Damage that would normally require countless explosive tags or large-scale ninjutsu was now accomplished with a simple swipe of its claws. And so it went. Explosions, shouts, screams, and cries blended together, echoing across Konoha. Faced with this scene, even Shinji, watching from afar, felt sheer terror, let alone the villagers near the 9-tails. His throat dry, he muttered, "This is a tailed beast." Humans were tiny insects before such a monster. He remembered from the last 9-tails attack that Danzo, seeing Sharingan manipulation signs, had banned the Uchiha clan from participating in the battle. The village paid dearly. Now, even if the village wanted the Uchiha to step up, there was no one left. They'd been wiped out. He paused, startled. Wait, aren't I Uchiha? The thought barely formed before he shook his head. Confronting a monster like the 9-tails with this fragile body was suicidal. Besides, his eye power was already dangerously low. If he didn't succeed in getting those coal briquettes this time, who knew how many more invasions he could fend off? Squandering his power now would be foolish. Konoha's full of hidden talent. They don't need me, an Uchiha remnant, to deal with the 9-tails. Shinji turned away, jumped off the tree, and headed for his apartment, but he couldn't shake the unease. He wondered if any of his classmates were near the rampaging beast, if Naruto would be okay, if that idiot Cheyenne would try to join the fray, if that barbecue restaurant he loved would be destroyed. He didn't even know why these random thoughts were popping into his head, and the constant explosions and screams only made him more irritable and unhappy. Suddenly, he stopped. Without him realizing it, his black eyes had turned scarlet. I'm not trying to become the fastest legend in Kaleidoscope Uchiha history. He realized that acting so recklessly could easily make him the fastest blind Uchiha ever. He scowled, then pulled on his mask. He stared at the distant 9-tails, wreathed in monstrous flames. It's not about saving anyone. I just want to ruin its fun. Whoosh. With a burst of speed, he raced toward the 9-tails. Sasuke ran blindly, panicked. I just threw a few rocks, and now this. He still had no clue what was happening. He was just running on instinct, afraid to stop, but disaster clung to him like a shadow. No matter where he fled, the sounds of explosions and screams followed. On the street, one ninja after another rushed past him toward the 9-tails, but they were like sandbags against a tidal wave, instantly swept away, leaving no trace. The street in front of Sasuke was reduced to rubble. He scrambled through the ruins, using his hands and feet, his vision obscured by smoke and dust. He couldn't tell which way to go. he didn't know where to run anymore. More and more Konoha ninjas were arriving as reinforcements from every direction, but against the enraged Ninetales, they were moths drawn to a flame, quickly killed or injured. The cries grew fainter amidst the explosions and collapsing buildings. Sasuke, on all fours, almost crawling through the debris, suddenly froze. He stared at a broken mirror lying in the ruins. Lost in thought, in the mirror, his panicked face was covered in dirt, and he was sprawled on the ground like a broken dog. Damn it, I'm a proud Uchiha. How can I look so pathetic? He struggled to his feet and turned to face the Ninetales. He didn't even notice that his eyes had turned scarlet, and a single black tomo had appeared in each. At first, the Ninetales ignored Sasuke, the insignificant little figure standing among the ruins, but when Sasuke activated his Sharingan and the Yin release chakra unique to the Sharingan burst from his body, it sensed him immediately. Sharingan eyes, filled with boundless hatred, the Ninetales lowered its head and glared at Sasuke. Seeing the massive Ninetales staring down at him with such malice, Sasuke's fleeting courage vanished instantly. The Ninetales lowered its head, slowly approaching Sasuke. Why? Why is it always the damn Uchiha? Sasuke trembled, too terrified to even move, remembering how he had been enslaved and manipulated by the Sharingan in the past. The Ninetales couldn't contain its rage. It raised its paw and swung down on Sasuke with a deafening roar. Am I going to die? Sasuke, paralyzed with fear, could only think this one thought, but just as he braced for death, the giant claws of the Ninetales stopped inches from his face. He looked up. Somehow, the Ninetales' vertical pupils had changed into the pattern of a Sharingan. Chapter 22 Go. Part 3. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 22 Go Back. Sasuke was drenched in sweat, his legs like jelly. Those massive claws were close enough to tickle his nose. All he could hear was the thunderous pounding of his own heart. He was oblivious to the figure that had appeared behind him, Shinji, who'd rushed to the rescue. Standing amidst the rising dust and smoke, perched atop some rubble, he glared at Ninetales. One look was enough to halt Ninetales' attack, but even though Shinji's Mangekyo Sharingan technique had him pinned, Kyuubi wasn't completely subdued. It roared, "Damn you!" The raw power of the tailed beast exploded outward with a deafening roar. Sasuke, caught in the direct blast, was stunned. Humph! Shinji countered with a snort. His Mangekyo Sharingan blazed with an unearthly light. He had to commit, even if it meant burning out his eye power. He had to crush the beast and take control. Soon, under the crushing force of Shinji's Mangekyo Sharingan, Kyuubi's resistance began to crumble, its rage fading. Not enough. I have to wake up Naruto. Shinji's eyes narrowed. Pressing his advantage, he plunged into Kyuubi's consciousness. Using his eye power, subduing Kyuubi would have been enough, but to save Naruto, he needed to rouse the kid's consciousness, so Naruto could reclaim control of his own mind. In a flash, Shinji's consciousness found itself in a dark, subterranean palace. What happened to Naruto's mindscape? He could just make out that this was Naruto's spiritual world, but it was nothing like he'd imagined. No pool, no cage. Just a sea of orange-red tailed beast chakra, like bubbles everywhere. Could the seal be breaking? Shinji frowned, taking in the scene. The fourth Hokage had sealed Ninetales inside Naruto with a double lock. Apart from the main seal, he and Naruto's mother, Uzumaki Kushina, had both left a reservoir of chakra in Naruto's body for emergencies. But now, that safety net didn't seem to be working. He wondered, is it because Naruto's completely out of it, that the fourth Hokage in Kushina's chakra needed to tap into Naruto's senses to get a read on the outside world? If Naruto had just been dazed, they could have intervened in time, but if Naruto had completely lost consciousness, their fail-safe would be sluggish, unresponsive, no time to overthink. Shinji headed straight for the densest concentration of tailed beast chakra. Sensing Shinji's intrusion, the tailed beast chakras in Naruto's mind began to coalesce, forming a massive nine-tailed head. It glared at Shinji. Those damn evil eyes again. Back in your cage. Shinji wasn't in the mood for talk. He slapped Kyuubi right across the face. Bang, star. The massive head of tailed beast chakra popped like a balloon. As Ninetales' head vanished before Shinji, a corroded, rusty gate appeared. No wonder the fourth Hokage couldn't sense anything. The seal's still holding, barely. Shinji recognized the gate as the Kyuubi seal. Though it was crumbling, the seal itself was still intact. The leak-tailed beast chakra was seeping through the cracks in the gate. The chakra he had dispersed gathered and reformed into a massive nine-tailed head. It opened its fangs, wanting nothing more than to swallow Shinji whole. No one can stop me this time. I'll burn your village to the ground. Shinji strode forward. Uchiha's going to die. Get back inside. Endless-tailed beast chakras surrounded Shinji's consciousness, but his Mangekyo Sharingan's power, like a lone moon in the night, cut through the darkness, scattering the turbulent chakra. With each step, the tailed beast chakra filling Naruto's mind was suppressed, retreating behind the gate. Damn Uchiha! I'll tear you apart. Soon, all that remained in Naruto's mind was Ninetales' impotent rage. Trapped behind the seal, Shinji reached the gate and finally saw Naruto, lying on the ground, covered in cuts and bruises. He's hurt bad. Someone set him up. Shinji sighed, then shook Naruto. In that instant, Shinji snapped back to reality, his eyes opening. The surroundings were still a mess, shrouded in smoke and dust, like a war zone. But the Ninetales before him was a fading shadow, melting like ice cream. Knowing Naruto's consciousness was returning, Shinji didn't linger. He was out of there. Sasuke, still dazed, hadn't even noticed Shinji's presence. He was still staring blankly at Kyuubi, watching its slitted pupils morph into the Sharingan pattern, watching it dissolve. Swish, swish, star. Moments later, Konoha ninjas swarmed the area. Among them was Kakashi, hurrying to the scene. His Sharingan blazed, ready for a showdown with Kyuubi. He'd been too young to fight during the Ninetales attack years ago. He'd watched his teacher, the fourth Hokage, die, and he'd regretted it ever since. He'd vowed that this time, he'd stop Ninetales, even if it cost him his life. But what he saw stopped everyone in their tracks. The terrifying Ninetales was collapsing in front of a 7-year-old Uchiha Sasuke. A titan, defeated by a child. The impact was so great that the Konoha ninjas forgot what they were supposed to do. Then Kakashi noticed Sasuke's eyes, scarlet Sharingan, with two distinct tomo swirling in the pupils. He awakened the Sharingan. And it's a double tomo. A wave of shock crashed through him as Ninetales dissolved. Naruto, the Ninetales Jinchuriki, appeared. Medical ninjas rushed forward and began assessing Naruto's injuries. Then, one of them nodded to Kakashi, signaling that Naruto was badly hurt but alive and could be saved. Phew! Kakashi let out a long sigh of relief. Did that Uchiha kid just subdue Kyuubi? Look at his eyes. Wait, he unlocked the Sharingan at 7. And it's a double tomo. The crowd started chattering, trying to process what they'd seen. A tailed beast, capable of leveling a nation, defeated by a 7-year-old. It was too much to take in. Sasuke, still under everyone's gaze, hadn't snapped out of it. He was staring blankly at the space where Kyuubi had been, his legs shaking uncontrollably. Kakashi glanced down, then quickly shouted, "Someone get the kid a clean pair of pants." End of this chapter. Chapter 23 has won. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 23, It Can't Be. Alright, one at a time. Don't shove. Outside the shelter, a Konoha Chunin was directing the flow of refugees. Shinji, having changed his clothes, blended into the crowd, following instructions and walking towards the shelter alongside everyone else. He'd stopped the rampaging Ninetales, awakened Naruto, and then slipped into the refugee stream like any ordinary villager. Konoha's shelter was located in the mountains behind Hokage Rock. As he approached the entrance with the crowd, he paused, glancing back at the village one last time before entering. The chaos seemed to be dying down, things were apparently under control. Hope Naruto's doing okay. With that silent thought, he turned and followed the others into the shelter. Shinji, over here. This way. He barely had time to register his surroundings when a shout reached him. He looked in the direction of the voice and saw Zyuan jumping up and down, trying to get his attention. Are you trying to get us killed? Shinji rolled his eyes. The last thing he wanted was to attract attention. Making a scene with Cheyenne, the priestess from the land of demons, in front of all these people. No way, so, he ignored Zun and scanned the shelter, heading straight for his classmates on the other side. Bike greeted him. Shinji, so glad you're okay. Lee stepped up as well. We didn't see you for a while, we were worried. Shinji nodded, keeping his distance. He saw that most of his classmates, including Bai and Karen, were there, and relaxed a bit, taking a seat, but no sooner had he sat down than a sharp pain shot through his eyes. This time, the stinging was far worse than before, like something was actually piercing his eyeballs. His vision went blurry. After getting used to the crystal-clear sight of the Mangekyo Sharingan, this sudden blur was incredibly jarring, even making him dizzy. Bai, noticing his distress, quickly supported him. Shinji, what's wrong? Are you hurt? The other students looked at Shinji with concern. Karen, still withdrawn, huddled in a corner, but when she heard that Shinji might be hurt, she glanced over, hesitating whether to offer her help. I'm fine. Shinji waved it off, placing a hand on his forehead and closing his eyes. Honestly, he wasn't that surprised by the Mangekyo Sharingan's reaction. He'd been pushing it way too hard in just a few short weeks. During the first invasion, he'd relied on its power to kill the hand demon with Susanoo, then activated it again to save Cheyenne, and just now, he'd completely relied on the Mangekyo Sharingan's power to subdue the Ninetales. No finesse, just brute force. He might have dealt with the terrifying Ninetales quickly, but the drain on his chakra was far greater than he'd anticipated. Looks like I'm gonna unlock the fastest blind guy achievement. Shinji chuckled to himself. At this rate, he figured he'd be navigating life blind before long. If he could have one regret. He looked around. Not far away, Irika-sensei was holding a list, counting the students, his face etched with worry. The shelter was filled with crying. People's faces showed fear and helplessness. During the last Ninetales attack, they had the fourth Hokage. But this time, who could stop the Ninetales and save Konoha? Civilians and even the academy students felt scared and uncertain. Tenten was pulling on Irika's sleeve, crying, Irika-sensei, are things really okay out there? When can we go home? Irika reassured her. Don't worry, everything will be alright. Just have faith. Shinji watched the scene, then looked away. Okay, that's it this time. I'm definitely not being a hero again, promise. Suddenly, all the red warning lights in the shelter went out. An old man walked in and announced, the situation has subsided. Everyone can leave the shelter in an orderly fashion. Shinji recognized him as Mitamito Yen, one of Konoha's advisor elders. Is it over? Thank goodness. Finally, we can go home. A wave of relieved cheers echoed through the shelter. Many villagers who'd lived through the previous Ninetales attack embraced each other, weeping with gratitude that they'd survived yet another catastrophe. Shinji got up with everyone, moving slowly towards the exit. He was completely exhausted. At the Hokage's office, the third Hokage was looking at the Umbu before him, demanding, how could this happen? Someone better explain this to me. An Umbu stepped forward. Lord Hokage, we've investigated the incident. We're certain it was a premeditated attack. The Umbu explained how the attacker lured the Umbu guarding Naruto away by attacking Karen, then went after Naruto, detailing everything. Elder advisors, Danzo and Koharu frowned. I don't want to hear that. I just want to know, did you catch anyone? The Umbu lowered his head. I'm sorry. Due to a lack of manpower, we were unable to apprehend the assailant who attacked Uzumaki Naruto. Incompetent. Just then, Danzo entered the Hokage's office with two subordinates. The Umbu, stung by Danzo's rebuke, saluted. My apologies. Danzo ignored him and asked the third Hokage, is it confirmed? Did Uchiha Sasuke control the Ninetales with his Sharingan? The third Hokage clasped his hands behind his back, turning to look out the window without answering. All evidence pointed to it, but he couldn't imagine a 7-year-old possessing such power. Koharu interjected, while things were chaotic, there were more than a dozen witnesses who claimed they saw the Ninetales' eyes change to the Sharingan pattern from a distance. The third Hokage finally spoke, Kakashi has confirmed that Sasuke awakened the Sharingan, and that it's the Tomo Sharingan. Danzo's expression turned fierce. I heard he was near Uzumaki Naruto when he was attacked. It seems we were all played by this brat. Koharu looked confused. You suspect Uchiha Sasuke planned this attack? Danzo, are you out of your mind? Danzo snapped. Right after Uzumaki Naruto was attacked, someone broke into my base while I was busy stopping the Ninetales. Koharu was even more confused. What does that have to do with Sasuke Uchiha? A root ninja behind Danzo stepped forward, bowing respectfully to the third Hokage and Koharu, then explaining. The intruder's eye power was extremely strong. I only caught a glimpse of him, and I was immediately caught in a genjutsu. The root ninja with Danzo was the same one Shinji had controlled before, the one who'd taken him to Danzo's secret vault. The third Hokage narrowed his eyes, his expression growing more serious. Koharu realized the significance of this. Are you sure he controlled you with a genjutsu? The root ninja nodded. He was wearing a mask, so I couldn't see his eyes directly, but I'm certain he was an Uchiha who awakened the Sharingan. Danzo's direct subordinates were trained to resist torture in genjutsu, so, although he was caught in the genjutsu, this root ninja could still infer the other party's identity from certain details. But with the Uchiha clan wiped out, there shouldn't be any Uchiha in the village who fits that description. Wait, there's one. The third Hokage and Koharu simultaneously thought of Uchiha Sasuke, who'd just awakened the Sharingan. Chapter 24 Success. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Going to bed, Xiaochun was still skeptical. You think Sasuke Uchiha is capable of something like this? Danzo scoffed. If he can subdue the Ninetales and control one of my root members, nothing surprises me anymore. Xiaochun stared at Danzo. But why would he risk infiltrating your base and attacking Naruto? Surely he couldn't have done it alone. Because he wants to steal something that belonged to his father. Danzo trailed off. His intense suspicion of Sasuke had its reasons. Sasuke's brazen infiltration of roots suggested that Fugaku Uchiha's Sharingan might be more than just it seemed, therefore, he held back some of the truth. Xiaochun noticed Danzo's reservation, and his expression soured slightly. Danzo turned to the third Hokage. Hand Sasuke over to me. Whatever plans or secrets he's hiding, I'll drag them out of him myself. The third shook his head. Sasuke is not yours to take. Danzo glared at the third, then spun around and left the Hokage's office without another word. Once outside, he told his subordinates, surveil Sasuke Uchiha around the clock. I want to know everything about him. Understood. Point 2 Root Ninja nodded quickly. One hesitated, then asked, Lord Danzo, should we continue monitoring Shinji Uchiha? Danzo dismissed it. No need. Mastering the C-rank, Fireball Jutsu, at 8 was impressive, but not unheard of. But awakening the Sharingan at 7, and the double Tomo at that, with the raw power to subdue the rampaging Ninetales, that was something else. Such a dangerous Uchiha, if he couldn't be controlled, needed to be eliminated. Back in his apartment, Shinji stared out the window, lost in thought. The nighttime Konoha was far from peaceful. Ninja and villagers alike were out in force, clearing debris, and tending to the wounded. Thankfully, the riot had ended quickly. The Ninetales' power was devastating, but Shinji's quick action had limited the damage to the district near the river. Casualties were relatively low, mainly among the Konoha ninja who had rushed to the scene. Who attacked Naruto? That question gnawed at Shinji. Nothing like this had happened in the original timeline. He felt like the ninja world had grown unstable, and hard to decipher. He started with motive, the strength and will to do it pointed to the other ninja villages. His first suspect was Kirigakure, who had a history of using tailed beasts to try and destroy Konoha, as with the Three Tails incident. But the fact that Kirigakure was the obvious suspect made him suspicious. He couldn't rule out another village framing Kirigakure to provoke a war with Konoha. Headache. He didn't have enough information to see the big picture. He reined in his thoughts, closed the window, and drew the curtains. While he'd watched the rescue efforts, he'd made sure no one was watching him. With everything going on tonight, hopefully no one would spare a thought for a nobody like him. He went into the bathroom and, just in case, turned on the faucet to mask the sound. Then, amidst the rushing water, he bit his fingertip and performed the summoning jutsu, *poof*. Briquette cautiously stepped out of the smoke. Shinji was anxious. Well? Did you get it? Seeing the coast was clear, Briquette puffed out its chest. Are you kidding? I'm Briquette. Darling of the night. Elf of the moon. Phantom. Shadow master. I'm not gonna screw this up. Did you get it? Shinji's eyes lit up. Briquette pulled a small nutrient jar from its pouch and handed it to Shinji. Here you go. Shinji stared at the pair of eyeballs floating in the solution. Fugaku hadn't awakened the Sharingan before his death, so the pupils of these eyeballs were a normal, inky color, like ordinary eyes. Without knowing the truth, you'd never guess they were the Mangekyo Sharingan. Figuring out if a pair of removed Sharingan was a Mangekyo wasn't as easy as you'd think. Even transplanted into your own eye socket, you might not know right away. Take Kakashi. His left eye was a Mangekyo Sharingan that awakened at the same time as Obito's right eye, but he still thought his left eye was a normal Three-Tomo Sharingan. In the original timeline, about when Naruto started training with Jiraiya, Kakashi realized he'd had the Mangekyo Sharingan for over 10 years, unlocking the Mangekyo's Kamui, so Danzo failing to discover the secret of Fugaku's Sharingan was pretty normal. Finally, Shinji felt that the planning and risks had been worth it. Briquette groomed its fur. You have no idea how dangerous it was. Danzo's vault was full of Sharingan displays. It took forever to find them. I almost got caught. Shinji happily patted Briquette's head. Thanks for your hard work. Briquette batted Shinji's hand away. Don't touch my head. I won't grow. Shinji laughed and pulled out a wad of cash. 5,000 as a reward, and the rest is all yours. Briquette stuffed the bills into its pouch. Hey, Shinji, don't you have the Sharingan already? Why risk stealing these? These eyes are useful to me. Shinji didn't elaborate. Briquette knew he had the Sharingan, but at the time he'd been wearing a mask, and Briquette, hiding in his shadow, didn't realize his Sharingan was the Mangekyo. He didn't explain, not because he distrusted Briquette, he just didn't want the trouble. After all, awakening the Mangekyo at his age was unheard of. If word got out, it would cause a village-wide panic. Please recommend tickets, monthly tickets. The new book has 200,000 words. Everyone who is good at raising books, you can sell it. End of this chapter. Chapter 25 Control, or Fusion. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The next day, the village resembled a small construction zone. Trucks hauled away debris and delivered building materials as residents cleared rubble. Rumors about the previous night's events buzzed through the streets, sparking endless discussions. Shinji went downstairs for breakfast as usual. Did you hear? Apparently, Sasuke from the Uchiha clan stopped the nine-tailed fox last night. Seriously? Isn't he, 7 years old? So what if he's 7? He's got Sharingan eyes. I heard he totally subdued the Nine-Tails. Plenty of folks saw it themselves. Man, the Uchiha clan is just packed with geniuses. Shinji, overhearing the chatter, wore a strange expression, so that's why I haven't felt anyone watching me since last night. The village thinks Sasuke was the one who took down the Nine-Tails. He almost laughed. Sasuke inadvertently took the heat off of him. In Konoha's current climate, being associated with the Uchiha clan and the Sharingan wasn't a good thing. The more prominent the remaining Uchiha were, the easier they became targets. But he'd saved Sasuke's life yesterday, so maybe this was payback. And unlike him, who was on his own, Sasuke had Itachi around. The village would think twice before trying anything with Sasuke. Then, it hit him. He'd swiped Fugaku Uchiha's Sharingan from Danzo. With Danzo's personality, Sasuke might end up taking the blame. After all, Sasuke, as Fugaku's son, had the most obvious motive for wanting his father's Sharingan back. Ouch, good luck with that. Shinji silently wished Sasuke well. It was a misunderstanding, sure, but let Sasuke take the flak. He also realized that with the Uchiha clan gone, only Sasuke, as the last Uchiha, could draw that kind of fire. After breakfast, he started jogging around the village as part of his training. He wound up at the edge of the village, near the Forest of Death. Because of the attack the night before, the Chunin exams had been postponed. leaving the forest of death, usually a testing ground, deserted. Seizing the opportunity, he climbed over the barbed wire fence and slipped inside. He'd obtained Fugaku's Mangekyo Sharingan the previous night, but to control those eyes, he needed to unlock the Susanoo. His cramped apartment wasn't a safe place for that, that's why he chose the Forest of Death. The Forest of Death was a 10-kilometer radius primeval forest. Aside from the tall tower in the center, it was mostly untouched, meant to simulate a real combat environment. It was the most secluded spot Shinji could think of, walking beneath the dense canopy, surrounded by massive reptiles and towering trees. He marveled at nature's power while searching for the perfect place. Eventually, he found a hidden cave. After carefully inspecting it to ensure there were no surveillance devices, he pulled out the nutrient jar containing Fugaku Uchiha's Mangekyo Sharingan from his ninja pouch. Taking a deep breath, he activated his own Mangekyo Sharingan, bracing himself for the pain, and summoned the Susanoo. Since the night before, his eyes had been stinging, and his vision had been deteriorating. Instantly, a yellow aura projected from his body, solidifying into a half-body skeleton, encasing him. Not enough, that he squeezed his eyes shut, enduring the pain and pouring more power into the technique. Fueled by his chakra, the yellow skeleton slowly solidified. Muscles formed over the bones, followed by skin, and finally, a layer of armor. The outline of the skeleton's face became clearer. A bright light shone in its eye sockets, like a deity calmly observing the cave. Huff, huff, star. Shinji gasped for air. This was the strongest Susanoo he could currently maintain, a half-body armored Susanoo. It was pretty much the limit for any Mangekyo Sharingan user. The next level was the full-body Susanoo, a form that required extraordinary visual prowess to unlock. Catching his breath, Shinji wasted no time and activated his own Mangekyo Sharingan technique, the Susa-Zun lamp. Roar! His Susanoo unleashed a deafening roar. Immediately, a crack appeared on the forehead of Susanoo between the eyes, revealing a pair of empty eye sockets. Ugh! Maintaining two Mangekyo Sharingan techniques at once was pushing Shinji to the brink. He cried out in pain, feeling like his eyes would explode, but he had to grit his teeth and push through. Frantically, he opened the nutrient jar and pulled out Fugaku's Mangekyo Sharingan. Holding the eyes in his palm, he activated the Susa-Zun lamp. Instantly, his godlike Susanoo moved, and a beam of light shot out from each empty eye socket, drawing the eyes from his hand. The two eyes were placed into the sockets, glowing like orbs of light. Roar! Susanoo roared again. This time, the roar reverberated through the soul, and Susanoo became more solid, visibly larger. Most strikingly, two pairs of eyes were now open on Susanoo's head. In that instant, the sharp pain in Shinji's eyes vanished, so quickly that he almost didn't notice. A blank expression washed over his face. The pain is gone. He shook his head slightly. He felt better than ever. Not only did his eyes no longer hurt, but the frequent bouts of dizziness had also disappeared. He was simultaneously maintaining two Mangekyo Sharingan techniques, the Susanoo and the Susa-Zun lamp. Moments before, he had been on the verge of passing out from the pain, but now he could maintain them with ease, as if he were using regular visual prowess. My condition has recovered. No, it's the visual prowess that's recovering. He quickly analyzed his state and instinctively looked around. As he suspected, his vision, which had been deteriorating, had fully recovered and was even sharper than before. Is this the power of the Susa-Zun lamp? Despite his previous speculations, he couldn't help but be surprised when his theories turned out to be true. While maintaining the Susa-Zun lamp, new abilities flooded his mind, one of which took precedence. New eyes. Drive them. Or fuse them. Chapter 26. This is too good. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Control or fusion. Shinji paused, stunned, before realizing the Susan lamp seemed capable of bypassing the standard procedure, using pupil surgery to fuse the power of two pairs of eyes directly. Immediately, he understood that controlling with the Susan lamp was different from fusing with it. They were two completely separate concepts. Control meant using the second pair of empty eye sockets to house another pair, gaining some of their visual power or performing a partial pupil transplant. That was Shinji's current situation. Usually, he couldn't access the second pair's full power when operating. This made sense, as the second pair belonged to someone else, making some rejection and resistance unavoidable. The amount of power gained depended on the strength of one's own eyes, for instance, even with the same Mangekyo Sharingan, Shinji could only barely access 50% of Fugaku's Mangekyo's power by controlling it with his own. If Shinji had the eternal Mangekyo Sharingan, controlling a regular Mangekyo could grant him 70% of its power. Furthermore, using the Rinnegan to control a Mangekyo, with its overwhelming advantage, could unlock 80 to 90% of the Mangekyo's power. Nearing complete control. Fusion, on the other hand, meant merging two pairs of eyes into one, completing the integration of their visual power. This would leave only one pair of eyes remaining. All fusion involved some loss. It was a law of nature, just like in the original timeline. Sasuke fused Itachi's Mangekyo Sharingan and successfully obtained the eternal Mangekyo Sharingan, but failed to fully inherit all of Itachi's Mangekyo techniques. Tsukuyomi was wasted. Therefore, fusing with the Susan lamp also had limitations. However, the Susan lamp had one unique characteristic: fusion loss was determined by the strength of one's own visual power. Fusing a Mangekyo with another might result in losses similar to surgical fusion, with a high chance of losing the fused Mangekyo's techniques if one's own visual power was weaker than the others. The fusion could even fail. However, fusing a Mangekyo with the eternal Mangekyo Sharingan would result in less loss, remaining in a barely acceptable range. By extension, the stronger one's own eyes, the less fusion loss there would be. If one's eyes reached a certain level of strength, they could even attempt to fuse other bloodline limits, like the Byakugan. After understanding the Susan lamp's capabilities, Shinji didn't rush into a decision. Instead, he deactivated his Susanoo to avoid unnecessary chakra consumption and sat quietly in the cave to think. Judging from the Susan lamp's pupil technique characteristics, stronger visual power meant greater control, whether through direct control or fusion. They both hinged on that point. Therefore, improving his own visual power was the best course of action. Shinji had also discovered that his visual power had increased significantly after controlling Fugaku's Mangekyo Sharingan, exceeding the level of a standard Mangekyo. However, he still couldn't replenish his visual power by refining in-release chakra himself. This meant his current visual power was somewhere between a regular Mangekyo Sharingan and the eternal Mangekyo Sharingan. It seems merging into an eternal Mangekyo Sharingan first, being able to replenish pupil power self-sufficiently is the way to go. Shinji resolved, though his expression remained serious. Controlling Fugaku's Mangekyo with the Susan lamp not only provided insight into the Susan lamp itself, but also revealed information about Fugaku's eyes. One detail was particularly troubling. Fugaku's Mangekyo visual power was actually stronger than his own. In other words, he was controlling the strong with the weak. His Mangekyo, awakened for 7 or 8 years, actually has more visual power than my own, which has only been active for a few weeks. How is he using them? Shinji was speechless. He knew his Mangekyo Sharingan had been working overtime recently, but Fugaku's Mangekyo Sharingan had been awakened during the Third Shinobi World War, even earlier than Sasuke's birth. After all these years, it had preserved so much more visual power than his. That's impressive. The Susan lamp's assessment couldn't be wrong. So after Fugaku awakened the Mangekyo Sharingan, he barely used its techniques at all. It was highly likely that he never even activated Susanoo once in his entire career with the Mangekyo Sharingan. Shinji frowned. The moment he considered fusion, the Susan lamp had given him a warning. The probability of fusion failure was extremely high when using the weak to control the strong. This explained why everyone in the shinobi world who had successfully fused into the eternal Mangekyo Sharingan throughout history had been blood relatives: Uchiha Madara and Uchiha Izuna, and Uchiha Sasuke and Uchiha Itachi, all of them. Only blood relatives, fused by blood, would have the power dynamic between the two Mangekyo blurred, experiencing no mutual resistance. Though Shinji and Uchiha Fugaku were of the same clan, they weren't blood relatives. There were clear differences in bloodline root and chakra characteristics, so Fugaku's Mangekyo would instinctively resist fusion if the power dynamic were reversed. Shinji could forcibly integrate Fugaku's Mangekyo with the Susan lamp. But right now, his Mangekyo was weak, while Fugaku's was strong, so that the Susan lamp, could only help him control Fugaku's Mangekyo for now. Shinji closed his eyes, silently sensing his own Mangekyo. In reality, the Susan lamp's control could be considered a mild form of fusion. Just now, when he controlled Fugaku's Mangekyo, Shinji's own Mangekyo's visual power had recovered to some extent due to external stimulation. He estimated that his visual power was now about 1.5 times stronger than before he started controlling 2 pairs of kaleidoscopes. Because he didn't know if the visual power recovery he experienced when he first controlled the second pair of eyes was a one-time event or something that could be triggered later, it was impossible to tell if he had a small amount of visual power recovery ability. Perhaps because Shinji's own pupil skills occupied so little space, he had gotten lucky and obtained the 2 Mangekyo techniques contained within Fugaku's Mangekyo. The left eye contained Amaterasu. Unsurprisingly, from this, it seemed that Itachi and Sasuke both possessed the Amaterasu technique, probably due to the spiritual imprint of the Sharingan, and the factor of blood inheritance. And when Shinji learned about the Mangekyo technique of Uchiha Fugaku's right eye, his expression suddenly became weird. Chapter 27 Forbidden Art That Can Distort Personality. You are listening at novelfull.audio. So that's how it works. Shinji said, a look of understanding dawning on his face. Fugaku Uchiha's right eye ability, Izanagi life, shares similarities in name and effect with the Uchiha clan's infamous forbidden technique, Izanagi. To put it simply, Izanagi is about manipulating fate. The user selects the most advantageous outcome at a crucial fork in the road and forces it into reality, effectively rewriting destiny. It's a reality warping technique with a steep price, permanent loss of a Sharingan. Hence, it's classified as forbidden. Fugaku's Izanagi life differs significantly. Instead of altering fate, it allows him to glimpse potential future paths, gathering intel from these possible timelines. Izanagi life doesn't warp reality like Izanagi. Its primary function is to offer a sneak peek at what could be. Consider a face-off between A and B. Fate branches due to subtle environmental shifts, creating possibilities. A and B continue fighting, or one backs down. This further divides into A defeating B, or B prevailing. Izanagi distorts any path unfavorable to the user. Izanagi life previews these forks before they happen, offering a glimpse of what might unfold. If A possesses Izanagi life, they could activate it before engaging B to gauge their chances of winning or losing. By scouting potential futures, A gains insight into the confrontation before it even occurs. If the odds of losing appear high, A can avoid the fight, sidestepping an undesirable outcome. So, to recap, Izanagi outright changes fate, while Izanagi life merely offers a peek, allowing one to strategically avoid unfavorable situations. After grasping the essence of Izanagi life, Shinji finally understood Fugaku's conflicting actions leading up to the Uchiha's planned revolt. Clearly, Fugaku, who awakened the Mangekyo Sharingan during the Third Shinobi World War, felt emboldened, believing the Uchiha were finally poised to rise. Then came the fourth Hokage, a rising star who overshadowed everything. Fugaku must have used Izanagi life on the fourth, discovering he was no match, forcing him to bide his time. Even Kakashi, the fourth student, received a transplanted Sharingan without Uchiha consent, and Fugaku lacked the nerve to demand its return. Following the Ninetales attack and the fourth Hokage's death, Fugaku likely saw another opening and secretly used Izanagi life on Hiruzen or Danzo and the other top brass in Konoha. His subsequent inconsistent behavior suggests the vision revealed either a Pyrrhic victory or an outright defeat. Therefore, his Mangekyo Sharingan fueled ambition warred with the dread instilled by Izanagi life, hence the contradictory actions, actively organizing a coup while simultaneously remaining indecisive. As for the night of the massacre, he likely used Izanagi life on Itachi and realized he was outmatched by his own son. Perhaps to salvage some dignity or to prevent a pointless father-son clash that would deplete Itachi's strength, he ultimately surrendered. Shinji was taken aback by this realization. Initially, he viewed Izanagi life as immensely powerful, even terrifying. After all, information is invaluable. Trading visual prowess for future intel, even a short-term glimpse, is akin to predicting the future. But reflecting on Fugaku's life, Shinji realized Izanagi life had subtly warped the man's character. As clan head and a Mangekyo Sharingan wielder, Fugaku should have been a natural leader, yet, after mastering Izanagi life, his leadership fell far short, with geniuses like Shisui and Itachi emerging within the clan. Uchiha, a proud lineage, was led to its doom in a mere 7 or 8 years. Even a pig couldn't have done worse, Shinji thought, growing alarmed. Fugaku, who awakened the Mangekyo, was, to put it kindly, overly cautious. To be blunt, he was spineless. This demonstrated how Izanagi life had influenced, even distorted, his personality. He seemed to have gained control over fate, but in reality, he became ensnared in its web, unable to move forward. If I rely too much on this technique, I'll become just like Fugaku, paralyzed by indecision, only willing to act when victory is guaranteed. Consider this: had Shinji possessed this ability before infiltrating the Umbu headquarters, he would have used it on the guards, likely seeing a path to failure or a victory bought at too high a price. Would he have dared to take that leap? Similarly, would he have been bold enough to raid Danzo's root base? He questioned himself. Had he glimpsed unfavorable futures through Izanagi life, he might not have had the audacity to break into the Umbu building and root base as fearlessly as he had. Without a strong will, one cannot wield a technique that meddles with destiny. Shinji sighed. Previously, he believed the cost of Izanagi life was merely visual prowess. Now, he realized it also demanded an unquantifiable courage. Only then did he grasp that Izanagi life, like Izanagi, was a forbidden technique with a devastating price. Chapter 28: The Lantern Carrier. You are listening at novelfull.audio. After realizing the hidden dangers of relying on Izanagi's life, Shinji secretly resolved to only use that technique as a last resort. Fate wasn't something to mess with lightly. Focusing his thoughts, he slowly stood up. Even though his eyes had returned to their normal ink color, he knew that after successfully controlling Fugaku's kaleidoscope Sharingan with the Susaki lamp, his left eye now housed Amaterasu, and his right eye held Izanagi Ming. Even without Susanoo, he was incredibly lethal. I've got another way to deal with ghosts. Even if Amaterasu didn't specifically counter ghosts, its ability to burn anything until completely incinerated made it a perfect weapon against their terrifying regeneration. After erasing any trace of his presence in the cave, he quietly left the forest of death and headed back to his apartment. Based on his past experience, the invasion would probably happen after midnight when the countdown hit 0, and today was the final day. He carefully arranged all his kunai, shuriken, explosive tags, masks, cloaks, and other identity-concealing gear on his bed. While counting his ninja tools, he strategized for the coming battle. His eye power was now significantly stronger, and he'd mastered the Amaterasu and Izanagi Ming kaleidoscope techniques. His strength and experience far surpassed what he had when he faced the invasion the first time. He was determined to take down the intruder quickly and get a high score this time. Last time, I got an E. Recalling the last invasion, he analyzed what went wrong. The hand ghosts had killed almost all the guards in Ziyuan Palace and wrecked a large part of the ghost country's shrine. The impact had been significant, which was clear from Ziyuan being sent to Konoha for refuge afterward. So, the impact the invaders have on the ninja world also affects the rating. His gaze sharpened. He concluded that taking out the intruder as quickly as possible, preventing any impact on the ninja world, would likely result in a better evaluation. Easier said than done. He methodically started packing the ninja tools from the bed into his ninja pouch. I'm not short on eye power right now, but if I can't replenish it myself, even with 2 pairs of kaleidoscopes, I'll run out. I wonder if getting a high rating could reward me with some eye power. Thinking about the rewards, his mind wandered. The last reward had been chakra, suggesting that kaleidoscope eye power could also be a reward. Taking it a step further, the kaleidoscope Sharingan was essentially a chakra-based organ. Could that be a possible reward as well? He was looking forward to it. After packing his gear, Shinji went to the training grounds. Bai was still under Umbu protection in a safe house in the village, so he didn't have a partner at the moment. He practiced the breathing technique while familiarizing himself with his own kaleidoscope Sharingan. Improved eye power wasn't just about more powerful techniques, it also enhanced insight, the ability to track high-speed movements, and even the ability to see chakra flow. Shinji wasn't blind now. or inaccurate, everything in his field of vision was too clear and precise. The sheer amount of information he processed in a short time overwhelmed him, making it hard to focus on what mattered. Basically, he could see a flaw in an enemy's defense, but the kaleidoscope's flood of data made it hard for his brain to quickly identify and exploit it, causing him to miss opportunities. He lacked experience, observation skills, filtering key information. Those were skills in themselves. Eyes were just hardware. Like the best graphics card, they needed the right driver software to unlock their full potential. In the evening, Shinji stopped training, grabbed a bite to eat in town, and went back to his apartment to rest. Soon, night fell. After a day of cleanup, the areas ravaged by the rampaging Kyuubi had been cleared up, and reconstruction was underway. Looking at the bustling market outside his window, Shinji slowly closed the curtains. Plane invasion detected. Countdown, 1, prepare yourselves, the invasion will commence after midnight tonight. The familiar voice echoed in his mind, but this time, instead of panic, eagerness filled him. Anticipation gleamed in his eyes as he stared at the clock on the wall. Time ticked by. Click, the hour hand on the clock finally landed on 12. Here we go. He slowly put on his mask. He'd already strapped the ninja pouch around his waist, changed into clothes without the Uchiha clan emblem, and donned a cloak. Everything was ready. He was just waiting to be sent. Mysterious interference detected. Suddenly, another voice echoed in his mind. Mysterious interference. He frowned. Interference source detected. Unknown. Lantern bearer. Enemy search failed. Enemy search will be reinitiated in 24 hours. Shinji sat back down on the bed, slowly removing the mask and revealing a solemn expression. This was unexpected. The fact that this countdown was only 3 days had already made him suspicious, but he hadn't expected this. This mysterious lantern bearer made him uneasy, and from the voice's prompt, he realized that lantern bearer seemed to be a title, not a person. The opponent seemed to have some ability to interfere with plane detection. The short countdown and the failed enemy search must be the work of this lantern bearer. Their ability was beyond anything Shinji imagined. Thinking this through, he couldn't help but mutter, what the hell is the lantern bearer? Why would they interfere with the ninja world? Those who are preparing to carry the lantern, your question exceeds the authority. Shinji stood up abruptly. What, am I also a lantern bearer? Please recommend tickets, monthly tickets. The new book is not easy. Student support, please. End of this chapter. Chapter 29. The situation is urgent. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The morning sun streamed through the window, landing on Sasuke's gloomy face. Ever since the night the nine-tailed fox went berserk, he'd been cooped up in this Umbu building lounge, not even stepping outside. Just then, Kakashi walked in with a plate of breakfast. Sasuke, breakfast is here. Sasuke looked at him blankly. How long are you going to keep me locked up? We're protecting you, Kakashi explained patiently. Protection? Sasuke scoffed after a moment. I don't need your protection. Kakashi handed him the breakfast, saying earnestly, Sasuke, you have incredible talent, but that also means you're going to run into a lot of trouble you don't expect. Sasuke closed his eyes. When he opened them, the dark eyes were now scarlet, the twin tomo slowly rotating. You think I'm scared of trouble? Kakashi was a little exasperated, but he understood. Sasuke had every right to be arrogant. Anyone who awakened the twin tomo Sharingan at 7 and could easily subdue the rampaging nine-tailed fox was entitled to a little swagger. Seeing Kakashi's hesitation, Sasuke started eating on his own. Halfway through, he pretended to be casual. So, how's that guy doing? He's out of danger, Kakashi said, a slight smile playing on his lips. He knew Sasuke was asking about Naruto. He could feel Sasuke's concern, even though he tried to hide it. After a while, Sasuke asked suspiciously, why is there a monster inside him anyway? Is he really the son of some fox demon? Kakashi hesitated, then decided to tell him the truth. Naruto is Konoha village's Jinchuriki. Then, he briefly explained what a Jinchuriki was. He wouldn't have shared this with just anyone, but Sasuke's Sharingan had the ability to subdue the nine-tailed fox. He might become the village's best bet against future rampages. The third Hokage had hinted he should disclose some information about Naruto to Sasuke. Humph, that guy as the village's secret weapon? You gotta be kidding me. Sasuke said dismissively. Kakashi shook his head. If we removed the nine tails from Naruto now, he'd die. A Jinchuriki can't survive without their tailed beast. Sasuke was silent for a moment. Sad case, he finally muttered. Kakashi smiled. Sasuke, I believe you two are classmates, I hope you'll look out for him in the future. Sasuke almost nodded instinctively, but then he remembered something. I don't have time for that. Let me out of here. I'm going to kill that guy. Itachi, but the name alone twisted Sasuke's expression into a snarl. He panted heavily. I'm going to kill him with my own hands. Kakashi tried to reason with him. You're not ready to kill him yet. Sasuke glared. I've awakened the Sharingan. Kakashi didn't budge, shaking his head. It's not enough. Itachi is the strongest Uchiha I've ever seen. You might have more potential, but right now, you're no match for him. Sasuke was about to argue when, *swish, an umbu suddenly appeared at the doorway. Lord Hokage requests your presence. Kakashi's expression turned serious. What's happened? The Jugingshen stronghold was attacked last night. All 5 teams stationed there were killed. Meanwhile, at the training grounds, Shinji was already there, as usual, practicing his breathing method. He'd noticed that as his body adapted, his strength, speed, reaction time, and even the efficiency of his chakra refinement were all significantly improving. Comparing this to the improvement rate of the dozen or so swordsmen who practiced water breathing in his memory fragments, his progress was even more obvious. Because of this, he was really getting into practicing his breathing. This kind of visible improvement was intoxicating. Someone like me interfering in the ninja world, what's their purpose? While practicing, he was still analyzing the events of the previous night. His duty was to protect the ninja world. The mysterious voice called him the one who prepares the lantern, suggesting that lantern bearer was a title for someone like him, guarding a specific world. The unknown lantern bearer who interfered last night was likely a guardian from another world. If that was the case, there shouldn't be any conflicting interests. They should each stay in their own lane, doing their own jobs, but the other party's behavior last night was clearly hostile. We'll search for the enemy again tonight. Hopefully, we can find the intruder this time. Shinji said grimly, understanding that this invasion could involve another mysterious lantern bearer responsible for guarding a different world. He realized the situation was grave, and the more the other party tried to avoid him, the less he wanted them to succeed, because their interference signaled that they needed time, perhaps to make preparations or gather intelligence. In short, they didn't want a head-on confrontation right away. I was disrupted this time, and I was helpless. It must be because I lack authority. Shinji realized yesterday that the mysterious voice could communicate. The reason it had ignored him before was probably because of the word preparation in the one who prepares the lantern. In other words, he wasn't considered a true lantern bearer in the ninja world yet. Back at the Hokage's office, the third Hokage looked at the 4 umbu, led by Kakashi, lined up before him. The outpost on Mount Kikyo was attacked. All the guards were killed. Kakashi asked, Lord Hokage, who was the attacker? The third Hokage shook his head. Mitamonian added, the last messenger eagle released by the outpost only mentioned being attacked by a mysterious person, without giving any details about the attacker's identity. Kakashi's heart sank. Could this mean war? Attacking a Konoha outpost was not something ordinary forces would dare to do. This kind of event naturally made people think of war. The third Hokage said gravely, therefore, the village needs to know what happened there. Understood, Kakashi and the other 3 umbu replied in unison. Mitamonian added, the support team has already departed. Remember, your squad's mission is to confirm the identity and purpose of the enemy. Assess the severity of the situation. This mission has the highest priority. Kakashi grimaced. He understood the elder's unspoken message. In an emergency, they could abandon the earlier support team. Everyone, even his comrades, had to ensure that vital information made it back to the village. Chapter 30. It's your turn. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Late at night, Shinji, fully geared up, waited quietly in his apartment. Unlike the night before, he felt calm and focused, not excited or anxious. Prepare for the invasion. The mysterious voice echoed in his head, just as expected. Here we go, he breathed, pulling on his mask. The next instant, with a whoosh, he vanished from the apartment. When his senses returned, Shinji found himself at the foot of a large mountain. Where am I? He glanced around. The mountain stretched for miles, unfamiliar and definitely not near the Hidden Leaf village. But with its dense vegetation and the same temperature and humidity as Konoha, it was likely still in the land of fire. My clearance level is still too low. He sighed inwardly. If he were a fully fledged lantern-bearer, in this ninja world, he wouldn't be caught so off guard. Lacking intel, shaking off the thought, he turned his attention back to the mountain. One word came to mind: silent. It loomed in the night, like a massive, breathing monster, waiting for its prey. Maybe I should come back another day, Shinji joked to himself, trying to ease the tension. Then, he leaped forward, heading toward the mountain. As Shinji moved through the woods, something felt increasingly off. Even in the dead of night, a mountain this thick with vegetation should have some insect or bird sounds. But here, it was eerily quiet. Swish, star. Suddenly, a dark shape lunged from the shadows. Shinji, his Sharingan already activated, instantly spotted the figure. He drew a kunai from his pouch and met the attack. Clang. Star. The sharp sound of metal clashing echoed through the silent mountain. Shinji blocked the blow and leaped back, recognizing his attacker as a ninja wearing a hidden leaf headband. A hidden leaf ninja. Something's wrong. He instantly realized the issue. The Konoha ninja's expression was terrified, not like someone ambushing him. Thin chakra threads flowed from his body, extending deep into the woods. Others might panic at the sight, becoming disoriented, but for a ninja with the seeing eye, the hidden threads were clear as day, the flowing chakra pointing straight to the enemy. Guess not, Shinji scoffed, ignoring the controlled ninja and focusing on the chakra thread. Diving into the trees, the method felt similar to a sand village puppeteer's, but he quickly dismissed the idea. A puppeteer shouldn't be so far from their puppet. Plus, considering this was an invasion, he had a good guess about the thread's other end. Using the breathing technique, he accelerated. The dark forest was no obstacle to his seeing eye. In a flash, he burst from the woods into a clearing, and the sight before him gave him pause. The source of the threads wasn't a surprise. It was the Spider Mountain Ghost Mother he'd expected, with her white hair and robes, but he hadn't anticipated the 7 hidden leaf ninjas, controlled like puppets, surrounding her. Counting that first one, that makes 8 leaf ninjas. 2 full squads. Shinji was surprised so many leaf ninjas had been captured, but, he reasoned, it made sense. Ninjas could be killed by ghosts without understanding their abilities. Besides, your average ninja might not be a match for a swordsman skilled in the breathing technique. From the Demon Slayer world. Remember, the samurai of the Land of Iron held their own in the ninja world through sheer swordsmanship and will, despite not knowing ninjutsu. In the ninja world, even a Jonin or Kage-level powerhouse could be taken out with one slip-up. Take the 3rd Kazekage, known as the strongest, who was ambushed by Sasori and killed without explanation. Even his corpse was turned into a puppet. The truly scary thing about the ninja world was its potential. The top tiers could cut the moon with a sword or cross galaxies. Of course, those with that kind of power were extremely rare. The ninja world was filled with ordinary ninjas fighting with kunai and paper bombs. And those ninjas, Shinji included, couldn't afford to underestimate ghosts. Adjusting his focus, Shinji glanced at the Ghost Mother, his expression turning serious. He'd hoped the chakra flowing along the thread had come from the controlled ninja. But seeing the Ghost Mother, he had to admit she contained chakra herself. Just like he was learning the breathing technique, the ghosts invading the ninja world were trying to control chakra, and they had one major advantage: they could devour ninjas and absorb chakra through flesh and blood. Across from him, Ghost Mother hadn't expected Shinji to find her so quickly. She froze for a moment, surprised, but she quickly recovered and urged her puppet ninjas to attack. Instantly, the 7 leaf ninjas, unwilling and terrified, surged forward at the Ghost Mother's command. Full concentration, Shinji yelled, cracking the ground beneath his feet, and shot through the crowd of leaf ninjas like an arrow. Brush, star. The kunai in his hand cut through the air, precisely severing the chakra threads controlling the ninjas. The 7 freed Konoha ninjas were shocked, turning to look at Shinji. Shinji glanced at them. Thump, thump, star. One after another, they fell to the ground. The 7 exhausted ninjas, tormented by the Ghost Mother, were hypnotized by Shinji's illusion. The moment their eyes met, they collapsed, unconscious. What is going on with these people? Ghost Mother stuttered, her face filled with disbelief. She couldn't understand how a single glance from Shinji could knock out the powerful swordsman she had been controlling. Then, Shinji's gaze, shining with a strange light, moved slowly to the Ghost Mother. Your turn, that the second one is here. There will be a third one later. End of this chapter.